Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Retro Cartoon Rewatch with Damien G. It's me, in case you didn't know. I usually take cartoons from the 70s to the 2000s. I watch them back in real time and I let you know whether or not they suck. And to be quite honest, this has been an interesting journey while trying to cover these shows because number one, I am a child of nostalgia, so I have a small place in my heart for a lot of things that were from the 90s and the early 2000s, specifically cartoons and gaming and other things like that, and less than a dollar slices of pizza. That's another thing I miss, but I digress. My socials, Damien G Show across the board. Hold on the chat right now. Oh my God, my boy Eugene. Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Yes, Rumbo. Okay, so let's talk about the first thing I learned. Apparently, if you have a mascot in cartoons, uh, you have your main character, let's say like Rambo, and you have a dog or a cat or something that was quirky like that, they might get more over than the actual show itself. So, yes, Eugene, Rumbo. And if you don't know what Rumble is, I want you to go back and look up the Rambo cartoon intro and just watch it for a couple of seconds, and you'll see a dog pop up after the announcer mentions Rambo. And then you'll see a dog. And then you'll know for why for about 4 weeks, Eugene and I, Wade Ilson, had this as our personal mascot and our picture for our chats. So you'll figure it out. But while watching these cartoons, it is not pure cinema, Eugene. You stop that. It is not pure cinema. I can talk, I think. So it's been a while since I did a show. Okay. The reason why is full disclosure, holidays, yes. But also just I have been working a lot at the day job. Not for reasons other than I have to, so to speak. It's not because I have to. It's because I just want to get some projects done. And by the time I get here, I'm either going to the gym, tired, or I make time for my friends in the outside world. I make time for my partner. I make time for my guy friends here in DFW. I have chat conversations with my friends. So I've been catching up on a lot of life stuff. So please forgive the lack of content in the last couple of weeks. But if you were tuning on earlier here on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and the like, or on YouTube, you saw my second episode of What's Your Why interview. I sat down a couple of weeks ago with Mallory Bradford, the CEO, Grand Poobah of the Sweet Things Bakery here in DFW. Look at those show notes here on YouTube or on Facebook to learn more about Mallory and her deliciousness. Because how do I say this? I've put some pounds on, and since I've been ordering a lot of her desserts over the last maybe couple of weeks, yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem on the waistline, but it's delicious. Again, check out episode 2 wherever you see your streaming services here on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, or on YouTube, all at the Damien G Show moniker. And just go follow Mallory from there. It was a pleasure to sit down with her. It was an interesting conversation because, long story short, my partner introduced her and I to each other, and we all realized that we would have been friends even if my partner didn't introduce us. Like in other parts of our lives, we have a lot of things in common in terms of how we treat people and how we view the world. As weird as that sounds. But that's not what this is about. I want to talk to you again about things I've learned while watching cartoons. And I have something to show y'all, but I'll do it at the end because if I do it now, I'm going to bury the lead here. So, number one, the first thing I've realized about cartoons while rewatching them now as an adult, cartoons were horrible. There are a lot of bad cartoons out there from the 80s and 90s. I end the show a lot of the time by saying just because you have an intellectual property doesn't mean it needs to be made into something it wasn't meant for, like a cartoon. Case in point, Rambo. Case in point, the Chuck Norris Karate Commandos, anything that was released by Deke, anything that was on the USA Network that had the fighting games from Capcom all made into a show on USA. That covers Street Fighter, that covers the Darkstalkers, and that also covers Mortal Kombat. Yeah, cartoons back in the 90s were and 80s were something. Uh, and the going lie here or the thought here is that people watch cartoons because cartoons were nothing more than a commercial for children to watch to get their parents to buy action figures. Now, that has been proven to be true on a lot of occasions. But a lot of these cartoons didn't even have a toy line, and they were just horrible. Horrendous. I think the worst one I've seen is Chuck Norris's Karate Commandos, but that actually had a action figure line. So did Rambo. Just saying. A cartoon that for me that didn't hold up, but I remembered being more awesome when I was younger was the show Cops, Central Organization of Police Specialists. Their whole tagline was fighting crime in a future time. And I loved it as a kid. And this is every cop stereotype the 80s would have had you believe that the future of cops was in this cartoon as you watch it. You know, the police chief, the head of the department is bulletproof. So they call him like bulletproof. There's a cop that has a elongated handcuff and he's called long arm. The 80s and 90s did not give good naming rights. I'm just putting it out there. So that's a cartoon that hasn't held up. I remember Double Dragon. I used to love Double Dragon when I was a kid. King Arthur and the Knights of Justice. Nope. That's another one from Deke that they have great intros, but the delivery was horrible. So that's one thing. And number two, again, cartoons were made to sell toys. He-Man and Transformers, Masters of the Universe and Transformers come to mind, G.I. Joe. But apparently there were Biker Mice from Mars action figures. Didn't know that. Apparently there were Double Dragon figures and a video game that I completely forgot that wasn't the Nintendo one. It was based on the cartoon. Wow. That blew my mind. And apparently there was supposed to be a Double Dragon fighting game that was released, but apparently the game developer, I believe it was SNK, could not get the rights to the Double Dragon characters. So it had to be renamed. So again, things I thought were cool or wonderful as a child, not so much as an adult. And it's really bad. Chuck Norris is probably the worst one I've seen, but there's a lot more. I can't even begin to tell you. I know some people like Dungeons and Dragons. Not my bag. I know some people liked Galaxy High. If you remember that one from CBS that lasted only one season. No, did not look good. Wasn't good. A lot of these weren't good. So let's move on. So yes, they were made to sell toys. And yes, it was advertised to kids like me because we like toys and action figures. And that's understandable. Cool. But the thing that really now I'm getting probably the most of is it's cheesy to the point of insulting my intelligence. Now, I know I wasn't the smartest 8-year-old out there, but if I'm a child today watching these shows back, I would realize how mother effing cheesy these things are. And to be quite frank, just it's not good. The writing is just horrendous. I feel as if the 80s and 90s specifically had really bad cartoon writing. Because you can the 70s had some pretty good ones, if you go back and watch, let's say, the Flintstones, for instance. I thought that was really well written for the time. The original Scooby-Doo, I thought was really well written for the time. But man, somewhere along the lines, this got so cheesy to the point where I'm looking around, looking at a fake audience, thinking, "What the fuck am I watching? What am I watching?" Because it's insulting to my intelligence. That's another one. And just something as I'm talking to you all right now, they're just not good. They're cartoons. I used to have such reverence for cartoons, and I've realized they were nothing more than my babysitter. They were nothing more than my babysitter as a kid when I was pretty much a latchkey kid. Cartoons was my saving grace. Cartoons was my babysitter. Uh, so it's pretty sad as an adult to go back and realize, wow, this is what our parents had us watching. Holy crap. Some other things I've noticed about covering these shows is the age differences between some of my audience, which is the people in my age bracket, and the ones who watch cartoons now. Let's say preteens. They don't get it. They don't understand. They don't like it. They think it's corny. I get that because even now as an adult, I know a lot of cartoons that are really effing corny. But there's a disconnect somewhere, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact we stopped showing Saturday morning cartoons because for whatever reason, the ratings weren't good as we got into the 2000s of let's say watching cartoons on Saturday mornings. I remember distinctly being in my PJs, eating insert cereal here. Could have been Rice Krispies treats, Rice Krispies, I should say. Or Cocoa Krispies is another one that I really loved. I know I'm talking about cereals here. Cookie Crisp, Sugar Smacks, Honeycomb, Corn Pops, anything that wasn't Raisin Bran was pretty much on my docket. But I remember sitting down and watching these cartoons as a kid while just chowing down. And as an adult now, I've watched shows while eating, and I'm thinking this does not work. And I don't mean to behoove to keep attacking the writing, but I get a gig is a gig is a gig. But as a former voiceover talent, I understand the need, especially back then, to take on these gigs because it's pay, it's money. But they had to have read the script at some point and thought, yeah, this fucking sucks. And I get that they had to go through it because it was a cartoon, but even I got to admit, if I'm a voice actor back then in the 80s and 90s, I don't know if I'd want to do these because they're so cheesy in terms of the writing. That's just neither here nor there for me, but that's my feeling about that in regards to cartoons. Too many commercials in cartoons. That's another thing. When I go back and rewatch, the amount of commercials that were allowed to play during Saturday morning cartoons was a bit overwhelming. A little bit too much for my liking again, as an adult now. And maybe because we're in the ADD generation, we wanted to come now. And we had to wait. We just had to wait. We didn't have streaming. We didn't have on demand. We didn't have the pre-recordings of your shows. If you missed it, you missed it. Too bad, so sad for you. That's another thing. As I watch these now, I used to think this was must-see TV, and man, there's a lot of filler, man, and a lot of these cartoons. Even now talking about it with you all, I'm just thinking how much this disappointed me while watching it over the last year and a half. I'd have to say the one probably that still holds up. That's tough. Some of the Sonic the Hedgehog, especially the Saturday morning cartoon one, I think that still holds up pretty well. From the 80s, there's not a lot, in my opinion, that still hold up. Transformers but that's just me being a little biased. The Bionic 6 holds up from the 90s. I think that might be late 80s, early 90s. That holds up really well as far as graphics, as far as writing, as far as just the way it was animated. I thought that those probably still hold up in terms of watchability. Again, Transformers is my thing. I don't expect everyone to like Transformers like I do. Captain N the Game Master is corny but funny. It's basically chronicling the Nintendo Entertainment System and all their characters, such as Pit from Kid Icarus, Mega Man, Game Boy. Link, Zelda. The Super Mario Brothers Super Show is not translatable to today's. If you watch the first episode, the skits may not fly now, but the cartoon itself was great. Super Mario Brothers 3 was good. Legend of Zelda was good. So these are ones that still hold up, after all this time. But watching it back, I don't know how much longer I keep doing the show, if I'm being real. Uh, I didn't do this to blow up. I didn't do this to go viral. I didn't do this for the clicks and the views and the likes. I did this as a love letter to my youth. And I owed it to 8-year-old me to watch these shows and remember it through his eyes. But I couldn't do it for a lot of them. I could not do it for a lot of them. It just didn't work. G.I. Joe, the first maybe season was pretty good. And then when it got to Deke, it became really bad. Go Lion, known as Voltron, holds up if you're into anime, especially from like the 70s and 80s animation style. I've been introduced to cartoons I didn't even realize existed, like Captain Harlow. Didn't know what that was. Basically, he's an intergalactic pirate with an eye patch, and he's kind of dorky when he speaks. The Pound Puppies was horrible. Sorry, these are just coming to my mind as I talk to you. Oh, the Pound Puppies. Oh, Faulkner, thank you for walking up to me after the Pound Puppies episode and just giving me money in my hand and saying thank you for putting up with it. I've never had that happen. I think that's the first time one of the people who have watched the show have walked up to me and literally just gave me money for dealing with a really bad cartoon. Just these are really good memories of just the show now. When Dio and I jumped on together to watch Pride of the X-Men and Cops, go back and check out those old episodes. Problematic, but I really enjoy watching cartoons with people who are in my age bracket who, I don't want to say understand it, but they're willing to look at it with the set of eyes as a child and the set of eyes as an adult. And those are fun episodes for me where I can take those kinds of cartoons and enjoy them. But like I say, oh, and another one two more that sucked. Pac-Man and the Rubik's Cube. Yes, the Rubik's Cube had a cartoon. I thought it was cool as a kid. Watching it now, that is mortifying nightmare fuel. The cube is alive. It's got arms and legs and a face. Pac-Man talks in a Brooklyn accent. And apparently the biting of the ghost was so graphic for 1984 that the cartoon had to be pulled temporarily for the animators to change the style of the episodes. Pac-Man does not hold up. So Dungeons and Dragons, again, for those who like that show, not my thing. Just not my thing. And I know it's going to rub some people the wrong way. I understand that, but that's just my 2 cents, what have you. I'm fine with it. So, as I've always said, just because you have an intellectual property does not mean it needs to be made into a cartoon. And alas, we had too many of those here on the Retro Cartoon Rewatch. So I don't know how much longer I'm going to keep doing this show because it's getting really bad, man. I'm going to start scraping the bottom of the barrel. I remember once I did a Rocky and Bullwinkle episode, and wow, that's problematic. It's from the 60s. Holy shit. Oh, don't even remind me about the Herculoids, by the way, when I talk about problematic in the 60s. If you go back and watch the cartoons known as the Herculoids, and I did that for my friend Topher's birthday, I believe, watch how problematic that is, where the family is the blonde-haired, blue-eyed family, and they're going to war with all the aliens of this planet who are of different colors. They're all made to be beasts, but they're of different colors and species. They have identifiable, features. I'm just going to leave it at that. That comes across as very problematic. That's not the only cartoon. As I said, Rocky and Bullwinkle did it multiple times while I watched that episode. The Wacky Races, which I still find interesting, still problematic. If you ask me, still problematic. So again, just because you have an intellectual property does not mean it needs to be made into a cartoon. So I don't know how much longer how I'm going to keep doing these shows. But let me know on my socials. Let me know at Damon G Show across the board. What do you think about cartoons now versus back in the day? Number two, would you want me to keep watching these? Because it's getting pretty bad out there, kids. It's rough out there to watch these shows that are just dreadful, that make me want to bang my head against the wall. But let me know on all my socials here at Damon G Show across the board down there on the bottom of the screen, either on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, or Instagram. If you got show ideas, if you have cartoons you want me to watch, please feel free to hit me up on those as well. I do take contributions and payments as well. I do that on Venmo and Cash App under the Damien G Show banner. All of it's Damien G Show across the board. You want to find me? That's the same word you use. That's the name you use. You want to send me a little payment or make a donation, do it at Damien G Show also on Venmo as well as Cash App. Go back again, watch tonight's earlier episode of What's Your Why, episode 2. As I sat down recently with the grand poobah of the basically one of the best bakers that I've come across at the Sweet Things Bakery here in DFW. Mallory Bradford, just a rock star in every sense of the word. So go back and rewatch that here, either on YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. It might be on Facebook. It might not be on Facebook by the time you watch this episode. Shout out to Big Gold Belt Media. Shout out to Revolver Media. Shout out to Jennifer Serra Beauty Team. Shout out to Free Play Arcade and the Texas Shot Takers. And if I forgot anybody, my apologies. But again, here's the 2023. Here's some good cartoons, hopefully, and some changes in the show format. So we'll do a little bit more of these long form conversations. Oh, and I almost forgot to show you the best present I could have got myself. You saw how I referenced Falk, right? Look at this. Look at this. Optimus Prime with the quote, Megatron must be stopped no matter the cost. This was done for me by the very talented Shelley Turner. Thank you so much. I commissioned her to make a watercolor painting of Optimus Prime, and I was pleased with the result. So thank you. Thank you so much for this. Again, when Faulkner gave it to me, I was almost in tears. If you know why I like Optimus Prime so much, if you followed this show, you understand my love of Transformers and Optimus Prime. And the day we lose Peter Cullen as well as Frank Welker, the voices of Megatron and Optimus Prime, will be a Saturday, even while losing Kevin Conroy late last year, our Batman for all intents and purposes. But let me know your memories, your favorite cartoons, your most hated cartoons, all on my socials here on YouTube in the comments. Like, subscribe, follow me everywhere. Follow me on twitch.tv/Damon G Show as well. And I will catch you later on this week. If not, first thing Monday afternoon. But again, catch you next time. Let's watch some cartoons and let's enjoy ourselves. Catch you next time.